Welcome to today's video using the Medallion Master Template stencils from Margaret Applin Designs. Today I'm going to show you a really fun way of adding texture to your medallion designs if you decide that you don't want to draw a lot of detail in with pen. So this is another way that you can create unique look and feel to your medallions based on what you create. So what I have here is a medallion I created using the stencils, and I kind of created a more open design here. So I wanted to start doing something that was a little bit wider and more floral, definitely more floral-like. But you know, I can never help like adding these little toppers here. So anyways, I watercolored after I laid out my stencil design, and then I did a couple other things after that. I laid in some deli paper collage that I glued down to my medallion. I did outline the medallion in black using the Pitt pen, but I went in after the next couple steps and darkened some of those lines. So what I wanted to show you is that once you create your medallion, it is so easy to actually create a sticky back fun foam stamp mounted on foam core from the specific areas that you've created in this medallion design. And I'm going to show you how to do that, and this is going to be tons of fun, and we'll go back in on top of our watercolor or whatever you want to originally lay in the background, and then add some acrylic paint on top of that and go back in and add some more line work. So stay tuned. So this is how I started this flower. I initially created a 3-inch circle in the center here. So using my Medallion Master Template 1, I simply selected the center of my page, which I kind of already put a hole in there and it's not really center. You can measure it out if you're really particular about it. But I'm using the holes on the side of the template that are spaced a 1/2 inch apart. So basically I'm going to place my tack in the center hole, and if I count 1, 2, 3, the third circle from the pivot mark, this is going to give me a 3-inch circle. As easy as that. So that's the size circle that I started with. So the first thing I did was, once I had my 3-inch circle created, I used the registration marks to create this first layer of petals that are going around. And how I did that was I simply marked my registration points, and the circle that I was using was the one that's immediately right next to the registration marks. So from here I just marked out my my entire circle here with the petals just by matching up my registration marks. And I'm trying to do this in a heavier weight pencil. I'm not sure. It's going to be hard to show you pencil weight on the video, but actually, so I'm just going to continue going around and making sure that I mark the registration point. Every time I pivot this, I want to put a pencil mark in the next empty hole there. And that is going to get me to a perfect setup. And then you forget to put the pencil mark in. Do as I say, not as I do. And so I'm just going to continue around here really fast to get this one marked out. And you can see what I'm doing as I'm off the video. Registration point, make my line, registration point, pivot. Line up my registration, draw my line, registration mark, pivot. Now I'm doing these really dark, but normally I would not, because I would go back in and erase those after I'd finished my design. But I'm trying to do this really dark so you can see it. And it doesn't have to be a huge pencil mark that you put in the registration hole there. It's just enough so that you can see where that next point is that you're supposed to land on. And then you'll eventually come back to the middle, and if you're slightly off, just center it. And you can create, you can go back in and actually create these little V peaks to join those lines if you want to. So, but whereas we're going to be doing so much more on this design, I wouldn't worry about it right now. So the next thing that I did was I created the next layer up. So how I did that was using the same template. I'm now using the next line up, which is the one just above the registration marks, and I am not going to measure out anything. I'm simply eyeballing the center of this design right there where the peak is. So you can see, sorry there. So what I'm doing is I'm centering this next layer right where the peak is. So I'm just eyeballing that center, and I'm going to mark this line, and then I'm going to rotate to the next one, and again just centering, eyeballing and centering that next mark as I make it. So I'm going to go around the circle and do this as well. So now that I've got that next layer in there, what I'm going to do is come back and do one more smaller layer. So while I have this lined up, I can actually be drawing this at the same time. I'm going to come back in and do this petal right here. So this is the one we started with. It's 2 down from that. So you can tell when we go to kind of mark this out, you're going to be drawing a line straight in here to create that petal break on that second layer. So basically on this round I could have been drawing 2 at the same time, and because I'm never that prepared, I'm going to go back and mark them in now. And again, remember that I only use those registration marks the first time, and there's no need to use them again this way. So I'll continue to go around and center my half circles here. And again, I'm lining them up with the peaks from the previous layer. And you should be pretty much straight on if these, if the points where these two come together, the line that you just drew and the next one, they're generally going to line up pretty straight on. So just a few more here. That one's a little off. And then we're back to the beginning, and we're good. So now you can see we've got our base shape. And you can see we've got 3 layers going on here. And that's exactly what we have going on here. So we've got the outside, that inside, and then the very inside. So the next step is to take your straight edge, and I'm going to just remove my foam core board here because we don't need it anymore. So basically, what I'm going to be doing here is pointing my, placing my pencil right at that V where it meets. I can either line this up with the center, my center pivot point here, or I can go entirely across the circle and line it up with the other line here. So you can probably see this slightly. You know, you see how here's one point where it's a V and they come together to meet those two lines, and then exactly on the other side. So what you can do to keep those lines kind of aligned is just go right in and do each side while you're lining up your ruler. And this one actually I didn't like, so what I try and do is I try and make sure that that pencil line like falls right in the middle there. So this is the next step, to go around and join those petal lines. And once I do that, oops, where am I? Yeah, okay. So once you go and join those lines to create that separation from those petals, you'll be going on to the inner circle layer. And I'll just show you that right now. So the same idea is that you've got where these lines come together on one side, there's a spot where they come together on exactly the opposite side. So what I did was I just drew both lines, basically made sure that they were kind of going right through my pivot point here, and this was slightly off center here, so you can just kind of wing it. So I'm going to stop the line at that circle and just pick it up on the other side. And I'm going to go around and do this to the inside of the circle to create those center petal marks. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back in 2 minutes. So I've gone and connected all of my petal lines here, so you can see all of the inside lines are done, and then that second level, those lines are done as well. And the last thing that I did drawing wise on my original was I added those little pointers there by using Medallion Master number 7. So it's this little piece right here that I went in and positioned right between those two large petals. And that's easy to do. So I've got my foam core board back here again, and my pivot point's going to be down here out of the range of the drawing here, so I can show you the layer that I'm going to be placing it on. So what I did was I just decided how much of this shape I wanted to, you know, come out from underneath the previous layer. So I'm somewhere around here, and so basically I just run down and I select the closest pivot point on that stack, and now I simply go in and mark just that piece of the design right along there. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it and centering it as I go around and do that. So that was the last element that I actually added, and from there I went into doing some watercolor. So I'll show you my technique for doing watercolor, and today I'm just using regular watercolors. So now I'm back and I've marked out all of my lines, and I'm going to start adding some color. I've got just a regular set of watercolors, and I've got a pad of palette paper, but you can use your non-stick craft sheet if that's what you like working with. And I've got a bucket of water with a variety of brushes. So basically what I did with this one was I selected shades of blue and purple that were pretty close together. So and they're actually pretty light, which works well playing into this type of design because you're going to go in with darker paint on top of it. So you can completely do that the opposite way and, you know, color up something very dark and then go back in with lighter paint, lighter acrylic paint on top with the stamps. So it's completely up to you, but I started with a lighter layer. So, and what I like to do is I like to take my watercolors here and I like to mix and thin them out on my palette here. So I'm going to be using some of the, you know, warmer tones, and basically I try really hard to make it look messy. And it doesn't really take that much to make it look that messy. So basically, I don't care that I haven't colored exactly where the lines are. You know, I just like to get that color in there and have those little areas of white just kind of pop open and leave them there. And so I really don't try to make it perfect. So this is how I'm going to paint up all the petals here. And what I'm going to do for my next layer is I'll use the same color that I just worked with here, and then I'll go in with another variation. So that was kind of like a deep rust color, and I'm going to add some real tangerine to this. And again, I just want to add a little more water to it so that when I go in to do the next layer, it looks messy, but it's within the same, you know, warm family, and the colors will change as I add kind of more to this to brighten it up. But again, these colors are still really light, so that's what I've chosen to do, is keep them light in the background so I can go over them with darker paint on top with the stamps. So basically, I'm going to continue doing this all the way around my medallion. I think I'll add some pink to the next layer. So this is what I'll do. I'll just kind of like add another color and start blending that in, and it doesn't look that much different right now from the first one, so I think I'm going to go in with a deeper red, deeper pink here, and really mix that up just to make it a little bit different. I don't want it to be all the same. And the fact that we're going over this with different techniques and acrylic paint means that, you know what, I am not worried about hitting the lines correctly and filling in the whole space. So there's going to be so much that's going to happen on top of this that it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to shut the camera off, and I'm going to go back and fill this in and then come back to you and show you what is next, and we'll be getting to the good part. Well, I finished painting up the entire medallion, and I just kind of changed up the colors as I went out towards the outside of the medallion circle, and then I just gave it a little bit of wash on the inside here. Now normally what I would do is go in and, well, my lines wouldn't have been as dark as what you're seeing here, but what I would do is go in and erase them. If they were too heavy, I would just run my big fat eraser over some of these lines, and actually after you watercolor it, sometimes you can get some neat effects, you know, by erasing on top of that. So that's only if your lines are too heavy. Mine were too heavy, so I could show you, and hopefully you saw me actually marking those out. So the next step is I've got some painted deli papers, and a lot of times I'll stencil on top of these, but these are just plain colored pink and orange here. So what I did was I collaged little pieces. I tore little pieces and collaged them onto the interior petals here, just using Mod Podge. So I have a tiny brush that I was using, just a teeny tiny one that I didn't care about. So what I'm going to do is on my palette paper that I have over here, I'm just going to put some of my Mod Podge out there, and I'm going to apply the Mod Podge with my tiny little brush. And you'll see that, you know, as I start kind of ripping this paper and just trying to make really tiny tears and things like that, it's a lot easier to work with the Mod Podge when you've got a little brush. So I'm going to dip it in my glue here, and I'm just going to place that right there, and just kind of get the glue over there. Now sometimes if you work it too much, you'll actually pull the watercolor paint off, so I don't spend a lot of time on it. I just rip it and then go in and place it and see where I want it to land. And I'm never shooting for perfection. That's just not in my vocabulary, and I like the whole serendipitous, you know, process. So of course you're going to direct, you know, some of your papers, some of your little tears in different areas, but what I try to do is just kind of balance what was potentially coming out of that right from the line where the circle is, and just kind of change up big pieces and small pieces and where I place them within that petal design. So, and what I like right now is that this color sitting on top of the watercolor that I used for this one, I like how it's very subtle, and I really like how it's not standing out, you know, glaringly. So what I'll continue to do is tear these pieces of deli paper and place them and kind of switch off between the pink and the orange and see where that gets me. And it's just a fun process. So I am going to do that, and I'm going to come back to you after I finish that step, and then we'll get started with creating our stamps directly from the shapes that we've created here as we've marked out our medallion. Okay, so I've gone in and applied my deli paper, my painted deli paper, and again I just ripped this and tore it and then just kind of glued it with Mod Podge, and you can see the whole medallion here. And I'm not really sure what I want to do with the center yet, so I'm going to leave that undone. So if you look at what I did in the first one, I added a piece of deli paper in here, and then I just went in with the black Sharpie marker and added some dots. But now's the fun part. Now we can get started on actually creating all this texture that's in here, and it's so easy. So I'm really excited to show you this. So basically, if you look at the design you created, and you can do this with any of the medallion designs that you create. It probably works better if they're simpler rather than more ornate. So the larger area that you have to work with, the better. So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to trace each one of these sections here, except for the last one, those little pieces I left by themselves. So, but I'm going to trace each one of these petal pieces right here with my pencil, actually with a pen. with the Sharpie pen because it works better. So I have a piece of deli paper here, and it doesn't matter if it's deli paper or tracing paper, whatever works. So basically I'm going to pick one of these petals that I can see right here, and I am just going to trace that shape onto the deli paper or tracing paper. And it doesn't matter if I don't get the lines perfect. You'll see what's going to happen next. So here's another shape. So I'm going to take also this shape and trace it. So I've got those two shapes, and then the last one is going to be the one on the outer edge here. Okay, so I've got my three shapes, and what I'm going to do is you're going to need a piece of foam core for this that you can cut up, and a piece of sticky back fun foam. So how this works is you just need to flip the fun foam over and place the tissue paper or tracing paper on the white side, the paper side. And you can either glue this down, tape it down, however it works for you. I'm just going to spray it really quick with Easy Tack, and it's going to adhere that tracing paper or deli paper right to the back side of the sticky back foam. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want it to move while I'm cutting it out with my X-Acto knife. So I recommend that you use one of the sharper blades, like get a brand new blade in order to do this on your X-Acto knife. And you want to be very careful when you do this. So simply what I'm going to do is cut right inside of those lines. It cuts through like butter as soon as when you put a new knife on there, new blade. And it's not going to be perfect, and you know, like I said before, I'm not shooting for perfection here, but I'm going to trace that line with my blade, going over the curves and everything. Somebody's lighting off a lot of fireworks. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Okay, so here's my first one, and I pop that shape out and see what I've got. I've got that shape of the petal, and you can just like clean up any edges this way, just like that. So the sticky back is on there, and we're going to peel that off in a minute, but I'm going to finish cutting out these pieces now that my fingers are all sticky. So this spray adhesive works really well when you just want to get that tracing paper on there so that you can so it won't move as you're cutting out your design. And these are like throwaway stamps, but you can use them for as long as it holds up, and which I think is great. You know, you can continue to use this shape on something else, you know, if you want to. So here's my last one. Cut that out. Like so. Now I've got my three shapes. That was easy peasy. So the last part of this is I'm going to take my foam core right here piece that I'm going to use, and I'm going to peel off the sticky back from the foam, and for the sake of saving time and energy on cutting, I'm going to line one edge of that right up against the edge of the foam core right here, and I'm going to peel off the other two, and I'm going to position those also. Jeepers. My fingers are so sticky now from the Easy Tack. Okay, and here's the last piece, and I'm going to stick that anywhere. Fine. So again, I'm going to take my blade, and you really want to be careful, but with a new blade, this should be really easy. So I'm just going to cut along as close as I can to the foam core without taking the sticky back foam, excuse me, without taking the foam with me, because I'm trying to maintain that shape. And this foam core is only, it's like 1/4 of an inch thick here. Might be 3/8. So, like I said, you want to be really careful. Fresh blade, you definitely don't want to get your fingers in the way of that. And most of the time, this is just easy to cut off here, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You just want to be able to see what that shape is when you go to place it, and that will be helpful. So I'm going to cut the rest of these out and come right back to you, and I'm going to show you how I used them. So here is the best part of this whole project here. So as I explained, you can do this with any design that you create using the Medallion templates. You definitely want to choose larger areas rather than smaller, teeny tiny areas, as they might get hard to work with. But basically, what we did was we traced these petal shapes, and I cut them out of sticky back foam core, fun foam, and I stuck it to foam core, and then I again cut around the foam core, and strictly just so that I could see where my placement was going to be within that petal shape. So what I'm going to do, first show you this again. So if you look at this, you can see that there's darker edges along the petals in the center anyway. Then on this middle layer, there's kind of like an overall just texture on it. And then at the very top layer, you'll see that it gets darker within this crevice. So the cool thing about cutting stamps like this for a project is that you have the ability to place the color where you want to place the pressure where you want to get that kind of cool effect in the different spaces. Now on this piece here, you know, that's going around the top edge here, if you focus most of your color on this pointy edge part, that's where you're going to get, you know, you're going to be able to press deeper and darker and have it kind of create a shadow like that coming off of it. So it's completely up to you how you do this. I'm just going to show you how I go about it. And right here I've got some of Dina Wakley's magenta heavy body acrylic paint, and I figured I would start with that. And then I've also got some Distress Paint Festive Berries, and I think I may work a little bit of that into this design as well. And the fact that you can just kind of place this color right on the edge of your stamp, you know, you can really just say that's where I want that color to go. And when you go and place it, you'll see that you've just got this area of color that's coming out. So I'm going to probably go around the rest of the design with this piece and just put that Festive Berries right there in the corner, and you can see how pretty that is. Yeah. and try not to get paint anywhere else on your design. So anyway, that's one way. Then what I have here with the electric pink, I'm just going to take my paintbrush and kind of spread that out a little bit on my palette, which I know you can't see, it's right here. And I'm going to take this stamp here, the inner petal one, and I'm going to just get paint on the upper edge of that. And I'm going to go and stamp it right here. And you see how cool that is, and it just came across right at the top. So unfortunately I had to take a break and wait for my camera battery to recharge. So I got a little bored, so I started like working on some stuff here. And basically what I left you with in the last part of the video was I was using the magenta color by Dina Wakley, her mixed media paint. And what I was doing was spreading this paint color out on my palette here, and then going in using the stamp, the petal stamp. And what I did was I kind of had a little extra paint on that, and what I did was I first went in just by stamping the color right on the petal like that, and additionally I went over it by adding more paint right on the stamp itself, and by using a stencil that I had. So I figured, why not just layer the stencil on top of here and see what happens when you go to stamp it. And basically you can add texture directly onto your design that way. And I'm getting a little bit more paint right here, and again pushing it through my stencil. So basically you can create texture just by using the stamp itself that you've created that fits within that that surface area, or go in and add additional texture with stenciling as well. In addition to that, you could also go come into your stamp and actually make marks in the foam, you know, that will kind of stick like that. And that way you can add additional texture to whatever it is that you're laying down. So again, I think I'm just going to hit this a few more times so that I can finish off those areas. And sometimes you have to put more pressure in the appropriate area where you want to see the design. So, but that can work for you in different ways. So, as I started to do at the beginning of the process that I was using the stamps with, I went in and used just the small piece from the outer layer of the circle and just added festive berries right here, and you can see how that's, you know, kind of stayed more towards the center, and then I got a little wild and crazy and I had some more paint, and, you know, I was going around like that. Additionally, I took the center petal stamp and I added Abandoned Coral. So that's the Distress Paint, Abandoned Coral. I really like that color. So I haven't finished that row yet, and I'm going to go in and do that, finish that row, and finish stamping my little stencil marks here inside the petals. And make sure I have enough paint on my stamp. However you want to make that work, it's up to you. So I'm going to finish doing this, and then we're going to move on to outlining. The last thing that I'm going to do is add some gilt, which is this gold paint by Dina Wakley, and I think that that can really add a lot of interesting effects to your designs. So what I'm going to do is use gilt, which is probably darker than I'm thinking it is, and I'm going to go back over the middle row here, but only on this edge right here. So I'm literally going to take my paintbrush, and I've got my paint over here, and I'm just going to like go right along the edge of this. And don't want it to look like it's a straight line, so, and I'm just going to focus the pressure down here so that I get that gold color to show up in the center. And you can see it's there. It's not as metallic as I thought it would be, so I could go in with an additional metallic paint or change it up. But you can understand what I'm doing and the effects that you can get with it. So again, just at the corner there, and when the light hits it the right way, you'll see that there's, you know, it's got that metallic going on. So I'm going to continue doing a little bit of this throughout the rest of the circle along the middle path here, and then I'm going to outline. So what I've decided to do is I'm working with my gold Sharpie paint pen and my black Sharpie paint pen, and this is the extra fine point on the black and the fine point on the gold. And what I'm doing is I'm going around all of these petals here, first in gold. And once I go around everything in gold, because I really want to cover a lot of that pencil mark, and I didn't lighten any of that up before I started doing, started applying the paint and everything. So what I'm doing is I'm going around and outlining every petal in gold first. It actually looks really cool with the pinks and the abandoned coral, as well as using the gilt on top of this middle layer of petals here. So I'm going to continue outlining everything in the gold paint pen, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do some additional black line work with the extra fine point black Sharpie paint pen, because this is going to cover a little bit better than the Pitt pen, but I can still go in and add a tiny little details and things like that with the Pitt pen. So I'll be finishing this up and showing you what that looks like. And additionally, I went in with my finger and I added some of that gilt right around the edge of that center circle part. But I wanted to leave the rest of it open. I really liked how that looked. Well, I'm back with my final design, and I have outlined everything in the gold Sharpie paint pen, and then I went over the gold actually to add the black in the extra fine point black Sharpie, because it gives a little bit more definition to it. If I'd left it all gold, it would have been like really, really light, but that could have been your preference, and that's perfectly fine. There is a lot of metallic on here. I know you can't see it with the video, but I'll try and capture that in the photos, the final photos. Just to add a little bit of additional excitement to this piece, I'm thinking this would be a really cool journal cover. And what I've done here is I've gone and added diagonal lines across the page here, just in pencil, and it's probably so light that you can't see it. So what I'm going to do is follow my gold paint pen along those lines, and then possibly go in and add some little line work detail with my Pitt pen or my paint pen, either way. But this would make a very cool journal cover, just fixed like that, and I'm really excited about this, so we'll see what happens with the finished product.